So your summer garden is in full swing, and you're picking produce every single day, which is so great. But right now is the time that you need to start thinking about your fall garden. There are just some things that can't be grown in the summertime, and that is why they need to be grown in the fall before your first freeze. So I'm going to take you through the steps that I do in order to get my fall garden in the ground before it's too late. It's Stephanie with the Rancher's Homestead. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. She's crazy. I am in the heart of my summer garden. Things are coming in every single day. I'm putting up all kinds of produce. How in the world do I have time to plan out for a fall garden? Now, I know that sounds crazy, but it is highly important if you do want to have a fall garden, if you do want to have some of the things that you just cannot grow in the summertime, here in the winter or in the fall, that you need to start thinking about it right now. And that is because some things need to be direct sowed right now, and some things need to be started as seeds right now in order to plant them here soon once they get bigger. Also, the other reason why you kind of need to have a plan is you do have a summer garden in, so you don't have endless space in your garden. I'm sure there are things that are coming in that you need to rip out that are all done, and different stuff where you need to make room to plant some new things. And so it's really important to start getting organized now. Now I'm going to give you my best 5 tips on how I get started with my fall garden, and then we're going to go ahead and start some seeds. I do have a couple videos out already on how to start seeds and how to separate seeds, which I will link in the description here. But let's first talk about what are the tips and how you are going to get started. So the first thing you need to know, which you need to know that whether you're in done a spring garden, a summer garden, or this is your first garden ever, which I kind of recommend if you've never done a garden before, starting in the fall is really great for a couple reasons. One is that there's not a ton of options to grow in the fall. There's only a certain amount of things that can grow depending on your area, so it's a lot easier to not go too big and get overwhelmed really quickly. 2, less watering, because hopefully, if you're lucky, the fall will take care of a lot of rains for you, depending on your area again, and you aren't out there watering constantly all day long. And then the third reason is for everybody. It's just cooler in the fall. The weather is nicer usually, and you just don't have to sit out there and sweat to death in the garden like you do in the summertime, picking weeds and harvesting and doing all the things that you need to do in the garden. So those are my reasons why I would start with a garden. If I'm a very first gardener, never put a garden in before, I would start in the fall, and I did that. But here's my first tip. Tip number 1, know your zone. And this is highly important because you need to know when your first frost date is and when your last frost date is, depending on which season you're growing your garden in. So right now, I'm not looking at my first frost date because, I'm not looking at my last frost date because that stuff's already been planted in the spring. I'm now looking, when is my first frost date of the winter? And that way, I can count back and get my stuff in the ground according to what needs to happen so that I can harvest it before the freeze. Now, nature is nature, and you may get a freeze before your estimated first freeze date, and that's just the risk you take. Same with putting plants out in the springtime. You just have to go with it, and it happens to all of us. But knowing your zone is super helpful. Tip number 2, so in that, I like this book. This book is the Vegetable Gardener's Bible. It literally tells you everything you need to know. And in the back, it has a hardiness zone map. Probably won't be able to see it in the book or in the video, but it has a map for you, so you can really figure out what it is and then go off of that. Because my tip number 2 is figure out what you're going to plant, what your family will eat, so I'll get back to that, and when you need to start them, when you need to harvest them, and if you need to direct sow them or transplant them. So this book is super helpful in helping you get that determined. I'm going to give you a little story real quick. So my very first garden, I planted all kinds of cilantro. I planted anything you could grow in the fall, I planted. Now, at the time, I lived in California, so there was quite a few things that I could grow because we don't get as hard of a winter as we do here. But I planted all kinds of things. But here's the kicker. I wasted my time on things that my family won't even eat, we don't like, and I don't put up. So it's just not time effective if you're going to do that. So really think about what can you grow in your area in the fall, and of those things, what will your family eat? Because that's where you want to invest your time. You don't want to invest your time in things your family won't eat. Now, I do believe in trying new things and seeing if your family will like it, but if it's something that you know your family's not going to eat, don't waste your time on it. Figuring out if they need to be direct sown or transplant is a big deal, because once you have your list and you know what you're going to plant, you need to know if it needs to be out in the ground right away or if you need to start your seeds and when you need to start them. This book has been really a game changer for all of that, and I just got it on Amazon. I will link it in the description, but anything you need to know is in this book. It's really, really great. Okay, tip number 3, map it out. So just like in a summer garden, you're going to want to map it out, and actually it's even more important now than it is in the summer. And the reason for that is you still have summer stuff out. So your tomatoes and your peppers and things that don't start really producing and coming in the later seasons, you're going to have your fall garden in when those are still coming in. And so you need to figure out, you're not going to have as many beds available, and you need to figure out what can you rip out that's all done for the season, that you've put up enough that you need, and how can you make room to put new things into the garden. You're going to have to be creative. Figure out some companion planting. That's also great in this book. They can tell you companion planting, what things go great with what. So in the fall, broccoli and onions are fall crops. I've tried now twice to get them in the summer. I can grow some onions in the summer, but broccoli I cannot. I've tried that twice now. It doesn't work. I never get a harvest. It's just too dang hot here. But they are a fall crop, and so those are going to be a big staple in my garden. Broccoli and onions really like each other, and so it's a great thing to put together. If you can map out in your bed having broccoli and then some onions in between, they go really, really well together. In your tomato beds, maybe you can throw in some carrots sprinkled around and trying to just maximize your space the best that you can. So this book will help you with companion planting. So don't forget about companion planting. You don't need one bed per thing. It really helps you take a small garden and really pack it full with good stuff. Number 4, you need to prep your beds. So now you've ripped out what you've done. You have your beds that you're going to use for your fall garden. You might need to add some more compost back to it. You may need to spray your soil for some bugs. So I've been spraying soapy water and neem oil on a couple of my beds because bugs have been terrible this year with the drought that we're in. And so I've been spraying that on there because if I don't get rid of those bugs and their eggs and all the things that are in my soil, I'm going to go ahead and put these little transplants back in, and they're just going to be eaten up right away. And so you want to try and give them the best shot that you can, because you also have to remember that when you're starting to put these in, it's probably still going to be pretty warm in your area, and then it's progressively getting cooler as you go. If you're in an area like I am, try and map it around when you rain, so some of your direct sow things. So I get rains in the summer on a good year. This year we're kind of in a drought, and we have not gotten really good rains this summer, which has really been detrimental to the garden. So I'm hopeful that fall is better, but I'm going to be watching the weather really closely. And all of my things that are direct sowed, I'm going to be watching it to be able to get the seeds in the ground the day before a potential rain. And hopefully that really gets your ground soaked good, or maybe you have a couple days worth of rain, and maybe you can have it rain real good so your soil's wet, get your seeds in the ground, and hopefully it rains the next day too. So watch the weather and try and, once you're mapped out in your beds, then you're able to really work with the weather, hopefully, and not against it. But you do want to get your beds prepped. You do want to make sure that you try and get rid of any bugs that were in those beds from the previous crop, and you want to add more compost if you need it, more mulch if you need it, all of those things. Okay, tip number 5 is knowing when you're going to transplant, or if you're going to do transplants, or if you're going to direct sow, and then starting your seeds. So today I am starting some butternut squash because the squash bugs killed mine this summer, some peas, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, 2 kinds of cabbage, and actually kale. I am going to direct sow that. So those are what I'm going to start. Again, you're thinking, how do I have time to plan out a fall garden when I have a summer? These things are really easy. I'm not doing an overextended amount of things. You can do a couple things to make it even easier for you. And that would be, you don't have to start in little cups like this. So this is how I start my spring. This is how I'm going to start my fall just for ease. But I will have to take a day and separate seeds if more than one seed germinates in one of these. If you don't want to do that, you can go ahead and start in a bigger pot already. Put 2 seeds in like you normally would to hope that one germinates, and then just pull out the other one. Don't even try and separate it. You can do that in these as well. So there's so many different ways to make this a lot simpler and easier so that you don't feel like you're doing as much work as you did in the summer garden trying to get that started. I don't set up my lights. Obviously, we do not need to have these seedlings inside. I will keep them outside unless we're going to have like high winds and a really big storm. I'll take them inside just so to protect them from the weather when they're still really babies. But I'll just leave them outside. We don't get low enough at night, and we're nice and warm in the day. The only thing you will have to do is just make sure you come out every day and you water your little seedlings, because being outside and in the sun all day long, they will get dried out pretty quickly. So we're going to go ahead and get some seeds started. Okay, so I got them all in, and I am just going to get some nice good water here. And because there's a lot more direct sow, this is my only tray of seeds. So just rest assured that it is not something that is super labor intensive. When I'm outside watering the garden in the morning in the summer, I will just go ahead and water these as well. So it's not a super big job, but you do want to start some of your seeds now so that you can get them in the ground. What I will likely do, because I'm keeping them outside, is I will likely just I won't even probably separate my seeds. I will drop a link in the description for the seed separating video if you choose to do that, but I'll probably just end up, if more than one germinates, pulling the plant out, letting the other one get strong in these, and then go ahead and transplanting them right on into the garden. One thing I did want to mention that I forgot to mention earlier is when you're mapping out your garden, I got this garden planner journal on Amazon, and I will link that below. But it is something that is really, really handy because you can write the plant name, the transplanter seed. You can write all the information that you need of the things that you like to grow. And you can do this for your summer garden, and you can do it for your spring garden. But the other thing that's really handy that I like is here in the back, it has some blank papers but with little dots on them, and you can use it to map out your garden. So what I went ahead and did for mine is I drew all of my beds in and then put which things are still going to be in the garden from the summer, and then I knew which beds I had available to be able to put what I'm starting here, and it was really helpful, and it was all on one little spot that's in this handy little book. So that is very helpful. Like I said, I got it on Amazon. I've had it for years, and I've never really used it to its full potential, but I'm going to start because it really is helpful. And so I'll go ahead and link that down. I'll also link this book, The Vegetable Garden Bible, in case anyone is looking for something like that. Now, here are some of the things that you can plant in your fall garden. I didn't say these in the beginning because everybody's zone is going to be different. So you're going to have to really look at your zone, your growing season, when your fall starts need to be in the ground and when they need to be harvested. All of that depends on your area. Here in Missouri, these are the things that I'm growing in my fall garden. Let me get my little list out because I'll forget some of them. I'm going to do carrots. My carrots did not do well this year. We have been extremely hot here, like in the hundreds, and zero rain, which is very, very unusual for us this time of year. And so the bugs and the watering, everything has just not been going well this year. I'm hoping to get some kind of crop. I'm getting crops. I'm getting pickles or cucumbers. I'm getting things, but it's just not going as well as I hoped. That's okay. That's what happens. But I'm going to try carrots again in the fall. Broccoli, I tried in the summertime. Did not work. What happens is that they start out really, really well and they get their heads and all of that. But then once they start, it gets too hot before they're ready to harvest, and then they just bloom out and they get all wilty and yucky because it's just too hot for them. They don't like it. So I'm going to do broccoli again, Brussels sprouts, same thing, lettuce, onions, celery, green beans, spinach, cabbage, peas, and I will start my garlic in the fall. That then doesn't get harvested until June. But your garlic does get in the fall. And I do have a reel on Instagram on how I do my garlic in the fall for that too. But I will get that in the ground, and that's what I'm starting this fall. So I hope that your summer garden is going well and better than mine is. And I hope that these tips were helpful to get you started. Start thinking now, start planning now, get your seeds started, or some things need to be direct sowed right now depending on your area for your fall garden. But don't let it stress you out and don't let it get too complicated. It doesn't need to be super complicated. And these foods are mostly just eating, fresh, or the storage possibilities and the preservation methods are really not that complicated. So it won't be as big of a task as, say, some of the things in your summer garden. So I hope this was helpful. Go get your fall garden planned and started, and we will see you next time. Take care.